5 or 10 years to complete the criminal justice complex, to include the law enforcement and courts. Like Daryl said, the law enforcement has a temporary waiver to be in the detention center right now, and that waiver will expire at the end of this year. At which time the alternative would be to move them back to the old facility, which I don't think is possible. Daryl also mentioned that the current facility is that houses the courts and the former law enforcement has been condemned several times by the BIA, who owns the facility. So that's a real concern. Basically, over the last 10 years, the tribe has been able to obtain about $1.7 million to complete the project. The current estimate for construction, although, is $4.7 million. So we need an additional $3 million to complete.
Okay, the next discussion will be the greenhouse. Previous, about 3-4 years ago, there was some funds drawn down for the greenhouse of $3.5 million. But however, there were shortfalls on our Red Lake Industries, our water bottling program, and custom doors, and shortfalls in those enterprises, and that's how the funds were used. So now Al Pemberton from DNR will say a few comments on the greenhouse.
Good evening. Yeah, we started the greenhouse. One of the it was about, I think it was about 4 years ago. We broke ground for it, and then it ended up being delayed. And it's time for us to get started back on that on track again. The forestry, that's one of the conditions of the forestry settlement, was the government requires that the Red Lake undertake the reforestation of the Red Lake pine forest. And the current greenhouse right now is about 30 years old, and its life expectancy was only supposed to be like 10 to 15 years, and we've gotten about 30 years out of it now. It's just a temporary greenhouse is what it was. And it's basically, a lot of it's falling apart now. It also does not have the capacity to produce the number of seedlings required by the settlement. The plans were developed and the ground was broken for the new greenhouse several years ago at the location near the elementary school, but the project was put temporarily on hold, and it's time to put this back on track again. The cost of the construction of the greenhouse would be about $3.2 million. It's went up, the cost of everything went up after we looked at what, I guess the steel and all the different things that go with it, everything, building materials went up on everything, which everybody knows that. And the greenhouse, once they get it going and all the other jobs, it can create up to 20 more jobs over the several years. The greenhouse begins operation, and the reforestation gradually ramps up to where we'll have people clearing the sites. And
law enforcement projects. There was a handout. I don't know if everybody got one, but I believe it was back in 2002, 2001. Red Lake Gaming Enterprise borrowed $4 million from the tribe. I think it was, what do you call it, stumpage account. And we've been keeping this on our books, and it's with interest. I believe we're getting close to the $7 million now. And what we're planning on doing is we're going to get a loan to build these two projects, the greenhouse and the courts, and that's how we're going to pay that back.
Good evening, everybody, and
glad you all showed up here for what is to be our first discussion with the tribal members about the circumstances with the casino being located here, the money that's due us from the gaming, $7 million, and it just so happens to be the same amount that it's going to cost to build a greenhouse. It's been long overdue, and also the courts moved over to the current law enforcement, as well as building the addition for law enforcement. One of the things I'd like to first state is that at the gaming board meeting a couple weeks ago, I asked the question, and I'm not, I just posed a question. I'm not saying this is the case, but I just want to make sure that, we just paid out this $27 million. We have a lot of unmet basic needs. We need to really deliberate. Where do we go from here? And that's why I believe this meeting was called to get public input, that our minds up here, haven't been made up. And I want that, stressed, that that's why we're having this meeting, to sincerely ask the people about what they want. One of the things that I would caution is that we take our time. Maybe we just need to take a breath, that we did accomplish this $27 million payback in just a short 6 or 7 years. We do need to move the casino, but some of the things that we should be posing, questions. Okay, we have the Boys and Girls Club over here. Yes, we do need to move the gambling facility away from the Boys and Girls Club. Where do we want to move it? There's all kinds of options. One of the representatives this evening said that there's rumors going around that we're moving it down by Deer Lake. That was an option. We do have land that I just found out about from the tribal realtor at our last council meeting by Deer Lake. There's a couple sites there that are still within the hands of the U.S., and that should be transferred back to the tribe. So that's an option. There's, do we even want a casino here on the reservation? That's another consideration. Do we want to consider maybe having a presence on Upper Red Lake, where it would be closer for Panema residents to go to work? Do we want to move it out to the line? And one of the things when that came up, I brought up that after Red Lake Builders was put out on the line back in the early 90s, I believe, 94 or something like that, people were complaining because they didn't want to see that ugly eyesore right there at the line. And are we going to have that many more outsiders coming in to patronize our casino if it's moved just 7 miles to the southern border? Or is it going to continue to mainly make money off of recycling the incomes of our people? I'm concerned about that, and there's got to be a better way of doing things so that we can meet the very basic needs of the people. When the heat goes off in this building, there should be an alternative site to feed our elders. It's things like that. When I get calls about scholarship money, the very basic $3,000 a student gets a year has been that way for a long, long time, yet tuition has skyrocketed. The amount that we give to our students to encourage them to graduate from high school has been $100 for umpteen years. I know because I graduated from high school umpteen years ago, and I got $100. So these are some of the considerations. Another thing is our environmental impact. When the tribe held meetings about the prison, people get mad at me because I call it a prison. Okay, I'll call it a jail. When that was built, meetings were held, and there weren't that many people that showed up for the Red Lake community meeting. And I posed a question at that time. Why are we building such a facility on one of our main roads? Where in America do you find a prison, a jail of that size in a small town such as ours here in Red Lake? just the district of Red Lake, you know, on the main road. So now what we're considering is getting some money to do some kind of landscaping so we can, you know, put ivy on the fence or some trees there. But what kind of impression does that leave on our people when the first thing you come in, you see the church and you see right across the street the prison? Is that saying something about the history of our people? I asked the question when we met here in Red Lake, why don't we build that prison out?